In the Star Trek universe, there are at least two starships called Hood. The first is the Constitution-class USS Hood, NCC 1703, as seen in the original series, specifically in the episode The Ultimate Computer. The second is the Excelsior-class USS Hood, NCC 42296, of the Next Generation and Riker's ship previous to the Enterprise D. Where did the name come from? And is the Star Trek Encyclopedia correct in its answer? The Star Trek Encyclopedia states the Excelsior-class Hood was named for Admiral Horace Hood, who fought at the Battle of Jutland during the First World War. The encyclopedia is an excellent resource, and its compilation a task not to be sneezed at. But how likely is this statement? It can be argued that the authors, being members of the Star Trek production team and family, must be unimpeachable sources, and perhaps they are correct. And yet, given the alternatives to Horace Hood, it seems strange to choose him over a number of more famous namesakes. Rear-Admiral Sir Horace Lambert Alexander Hood, Knight Commander of the Order of the Bath, awarded posthumously, Distinguished Service Order, and member of the Royal Victorian Order, commanded the 3rd Battle Cruiser Squadron at the Battle of Jutland. His flagship was HMS Invincible. So far, so good. An exemplary naval career ending abruptly in battle and flame. But Horace Hood is not the only Admiral Hood in the history of the Royal Navy. Another Admiral Hood was Samuel Hood, 1st Viscount Hood, who lived during much of the 18th century. He fought at the Battle of the Chesapeake, the Battle of the Saints, and the Battle of the Mona Passage, and even mentored a young Horatio Nelson. Mount Hood in Oregon is named after him. And who knows, perhaps one of the USS Hoods is named for the mountain. Viscount Hood's younger brother was Admiral Alexander Hood, 1st Viscount Bridport, who, like his brother, fought during the 7 Years' War, the American War of Independence, and the French Revolutionary War. Yet another Admiral Hood was Samuel Hood's younger cousin once removed, and confusingly also called Samuel. This was Sir Samuel Hood, 1st Baronet, who fought at the First Battle of Ushant and the Battle of the Saints, both during the American War of Independence, and the Battle of the Nile during the Napoleonic Wars. As might be supposed, ships were named after such men. Viscount Hood is credited as the namesake for the 1891 pre-dreadnought battleship Hood of the Royal Sovereign class. One of this ship's bells was later inscribed with the name Horace Hood and inherited by a second warship. This second warship was the battle cruiser Hood, pride of the Royal Navy during the interwar years. The encyclopedia does not give a namesake for the original series Constitution-class USS Hood, but it would not be too much of a shock to find this famous battlecruiser her namesake. Too late for the First World War, the mighty Hood was the largest warship in the world for some 2 decades, and if any British warship of the 20th century can be called the flagship of the Royal Navy, then it was the Hood. And so her destruction at the Battle of the Denmark Strait in 1941, whilst engaging the Bismarck, came as a national shock. It is one of those curious coincidences of history that Horace Hood died when his battlecruiser was blown up by enemy fire during a world war, sinking with a great loss of life, and that the ship's bell from an old battleship called Hood should be engraved with his name in his honour, and then inherited by another warship called Hood, which herself was a battlecruiser, blown up by enemy fire during a world war, sinking with a great loss of life. no such fate seems to have befallen either the Constitution-class USS Hood or the Excelsior-class USS Hood, although both saw action during the course of Star Trek. Was Horace Hood really the namesake of the second starship to bear the name? Perhaps, in naming the Excelsior-class ship, the producers felt a pang of American patriotism, and so went not with British admirals who had fought against the American allied French during the American War of Independence, but with an admiral who, had he lived, would have fought alongside American naval forces.